Good day, everybody. Today we're going to um, we're going what you call beyond memorizing a theory. We will understand how students actually think, why they have behaved that way, no? Why do people behave or students behave the way they do, and how we as teachers can respond effectively. Tallman helps us see that learners are not passive, but they are active learners. No? Edward Tolman is the proponent of this Tolman's purposive behaviorism. And he believed that he believed in goal-directed learning, as well as the fact that um, learning is not totally behaviorism, but there is a link between behaviorism and our cognitive processes. All right, so the objectives of this day lecture is for you to explain the theory, identify key concepts, apply the theory in teaching, and relate it to real life. Notice that as I begin this topic, which I don't usually do for college because, sometimes I feel that it eats up my time. But it's also very important that we tell you what our goal is or what our goals are for the day or the objectives for the day. Notice that our lesson today started with the goal. Now, according to Tallman, behavior is guided by goals. So if students or learners do not see these goals, they lose motivation. Now, as learners, what is your goal in studying education? All right, let's be honest. Many classrooms still focus on memorization. Students memorize definitions, they pass the exams, and then they forget everything, right? Memorizing actually dates in history. It was very, very popular in the past. I'm not discrediting memorization. We still need to memorize things. Okay? Memorizing dates in history, but not understanding events. Okay? We know when the events happen, but we don't know why, or we hardly recognize the reason why those events are celebrated or why those events occurred. Why did it happen? No, things like that. We only memorize events, but we hardly know the significance of those events. So memorizing formulas, that's what usual students would do, but not knowing when to use those formulas. Okay, that's also one of the pitfalls at which our chemistry, math, and physics teachers failed to highlight, no, in their teaching, that aside from us memorizing the formulas, we also have to know when to use those formulas. Okay? So hence there is poor retention in the learners. So that is what Tolman challenged in his theory of neo-behaviorism. So the main idea of this is that behavior is goal-oriented and learning involves thinking. Tolman said, behavior is not just a reaction, but behavior is a choice that is based on goals. Example, a student studies because he wants to be part of the honor roll or he wants to be a dean's lister. He studies because he wants to make his parents proud. He studies because he wants a scholarship. No? So, but same action. Notice same action, and this action is studying. But there are several reasons or goals as to why that person studies. He studies because he wants to get honors. He studies because he wants to make his parents proud. He studies because he wants a scholarship. Okay? So, same action but different internal reasons. Okay? So, if behavior has no goal, because it says that He believes in goal-directed behavior, that behavior has a purpose and it's driven by goals. So if behavior has no goals, I think it won't last. I'll give you a classroom example. Student participates because he wants recognition. Student who submits work because he wants to pass. Now, students who avoid class because he wants to escape failure. Now, what's the implication of all of those? If students do not see the purpose, they would disengage. All right? So let's proceed with cognitive maps. So according to, he also highlighted cognitive maps in his study, at which he said that it's considered to be a mental representation that organizes knowledge. Now, a cognitive map is how the brain organizes the information. Okay? If I'm going to show you a maze, I'm going to let you, what do you call this? Solve a maze. Let's say maze A, wherein the starting point is from the bottom, and then it will go out on top. All right. So I'm sure it will take you a while, no, in order for you to be able to finally determine how to escape from the maze. Now, if I'm going to give you another maze, maze B, but this time I change the starting point and the exit point. So since you already know, you already have a prior experience, what will happen is that it will just be so easy for you to go to the entrance and go out of the exit in the second maze. Why? Because you started to have this, what you call, mental representation of the first maze that you were faced with. And you started organizing your knowledge. So a cognitive map, you started to have this, what you call, cognitive map, because this cognitive map is how your brain organizes the information. So I'll give you a physical example. You are new in the school, and then, of course, it took you a while at first to go from your classroom to the canteen or to the cafeteria. But then eventually you were able to come up with a cognitive map. So you now know how to do a shortcut, no? From canteen to the classroom, from classroom to the canteen or cafeteria. So you remember the classroom locations. So if I'll give you an academic example, you started to understand how the introduction, the body, the conclusion, the cause and effect. So you understand how to write an introduction. No, you understand how a body is written, no, in an essay, how you conclude your paragraph or your essay, or even understanding what the cause is and what the effect is. Now, if we try to look at, if we're going to apply it in teaching, teachers, no, as would-be teachers, it's advisable that you make use of concept maps. Some teachers would use concept maps or let the students do concept mapping, or they also present their lesson with the use of flow charts. Okay, so in this situation, when you let them do concept map or you present them with concept map and flow chart, you do not encourage them to memorize. So students don't just memorize here, but they structure their knowledge. And all those students who have cognitive maps can start to transfer knowledge. So example, student learns grammar and then applies whatever it is that he learned in grammar, in writing or in speaking. Or in math, students learn the math formula, no, and he's going to apply that in real life problem. Okay? So what will happen? Without cognitive maps, you memorize, but you cannot apply. That's the problem. We just memorize information, but we do not know when to apply those information that we have memorized. It would be easy if you will be able to apply it, because that memory will be, the retention is really engraved in your mental dictionary. But if you just memorize it and you didn't apply it, chances are it will just be forgotten. Okay, now let's proceed with latent learning. So learning without reinforcement, and it appears later. Latent means hidden, right? Latent means, or latent means hidden. Learning is there, but it is not visible. So what would be examples of this? Quiet students would listen. But when you tell them or when you ask them to answer questions in the exam, they would always answer them correctly. Or another is student watches demonstration. He did not do it while you are doing the demonstration, but later that student is able to perform it correctly. Okay? So that is hidden learning. Okay, life example. Let's say you watch cooking show. You watch cooking show or you watch a cooking demonstration or a cooking video in YouTube. You later learn to what? Later learn to cook, or you observe someone driving. Later you are also able to drive. Okay? So my insight no as a teacher, I'd like to highlight na you do not judge learning based only on recitation. It is not only those students who are reciting na considered na who learned, no? So um they participate because of course they're after of the covert, what do you call this, reinforcement or reward. But in latent learning, learning may happen even without reinforcement. Okay, so let's move on. What are the intervening variables of Tolman's neo-behaviorism? We have motivation, beliefs, and expectations. These are actually invisible. No, motivation, the beliefs, and expectations, they're not visible. It can be seen in a person's behavior. That's why si Tolman, he really linked behaviorism with cognitivism, because of course he highlighted this abstract things here like motivation, fear, interest. No, all of those are invisible, but they're very powerful. So they have sometimes when we are in the same situation, we are faced with the same situation, but we give different responses. So example, teacher gives a task. Student A feels excited, but student B feels anxious. You get it? Why? Because of these intervening variables. The one who feels excited is actually motivated. Yeah. The one who is feeling anxious probably has a different expectations and also has different beliefs. That's why the student felt anxious. Okay, now what about expectancy? So we have positive and negative expectations. Behaviors are actually based on our expectations. So students act based on what they believe will happen. Example, I will study because I believe if I study, I will pass. So if I study, I will pass. So I'll study. Even if I study, I will fail. And so I'll give up. Do you see the difference between the two? If I study, I will pass. Therefore, I'll study. Then another behavior is that even if I study, I will fail. So I'll give up. So that's positive versus negative expectancy. But your role as teacher is not to build the negative expectancy, but to build positive expectancy. All right, let's proceed with the experiment that was done by Tolman. Actually, if you're going to search it online, you will see how Tolman did it. So it's he has groups of rats, and he also presented them with the maze. Tolman used rats to show learning without reward. So he divided them into 3 groups. The first group was in a maze and they were always rewarded. and then another group was never rewarded, and then the another group was rewarded later. So what was the findings here? The results, what happened, no? Three groups. Again, there were three groups of rats, three groups. One rat was always rewarded, another group of rat never rewarded, and the other was rewarded but later. So it was highlighted, or it was revealed that learning still occurred even without reward. So, of course, when reward was introduced, mas na performance suddenly improved. Okay? But he said, learning may still happen even without reward. But when reward was introduced, the performance of the rats suddenly improved. Meaning, of course, learning is already there, it existed, but the reward only triggered performance. Okay? So, there is a difference between learning and performance. Performance suddenly improved because of the reward. But then learning already existed even without the reward. So students may suddenly perform well. Students may suddenly perform well. And of course, learning was already there. But reinforcement or award, reward, whatsoever, affects their performance. So this result challenged a traditional teaching. Because, teachers often would think that no recitation, no learning, but that's not true. What did Tolman say? That is not always true. Even if they do not participate, even if they are passive inside the classroom, chances are they are learning because learning is already there. It's just that the performance becomes better if there is reinforcement or reward is given. So, of course, the implication of Tolman's theory or research would be meaningful learning, clear goals, and encouraged thinking. So, as teachers, we have to make learning meaningful. We just don't let them do something without them finding the reason as to why they're doing. What's the meaning as to why we have to do it? What's the point? Why we need to memorize formula? Why we have to master mathematics? What's the point why we have to speak with flawless grammar and flawless pronunciation? So you make them understand why they are learning all of those things. So instead of just telling them, memorize this, you tell them, whatever it is that you're going to learn here in this subject, it will help you in your real life situations. Like, for example, if you wanted them to speak fluently in English with correct grammar and pronunciation, you will have to let them know that, in your everyday life, as a worker, soon to be teachers, it's like 90 to 95% of your day, you make use of your communication skill. So if you don't have it, it will be very difficult for you to cope in the teaching profession. So in that situation, you are making them realize that, we really need to be to achieve our full potential communicatively because we really need that as teachers. Okay? So as teachers, we also have to use concept maps, group discussions, problem solving, and always avoid pure memorization. No? Kay kaning pure memorization, wala gyud ni makuha na kanang tabang. Kay the following day, makalimtan lang ni. And as a teacher, we also have to respect individual differences among our learners. So we have to embrace diversity because students definitely think differently. They have different backgrounds, they have different context. No? So they think differently. Some of them are reflective, some of them are passive, some of them are silent, some of them are very fast and very active as learning. So Always remember this as teachers. Now you encourage them to think, and that always put this or commit this to mind. All can learn, but we all learn in different ways. Okay? So the classroom strategies, concept maps, I already mentioned it a while ago, no? You can introduce to your learners activities that are student-centered. No? Student-centered approach or student-centered learning. Like, for example, you let them do case studies, you let them solve real-life problems, or do inquiry-based learning. Let the students discover and not just to receive. No, we spoon feed them and all they do is to just receive the information. Now, in our everyday behavior, real-life application of Tolman's theory, we make decisions. So it will help us in decision making. It will help us in planning. It will help us in navigating our everyday life situation. So our everyday behavior, for example, when you're choosing a course, no? When you choose the right course, back when you were still in grade 12, so the reason why you chose a particular course because you had a goal. You want to become a teacher, you want to become an engineer. That's why you chose that particular course. And it involves a very in-depth decision-making situations. Now, when it comes to planning, like you plan your schedule. So planning schedule, planning anything, no? It's not only about school, but even in your everyday life, you do lots of plan, but you schedule what you plan. So in that situation, you make use of your cognitive map. Now, in studying, you'll always have this what you call expectancy. Okay? Nga naman, Tolman is actually every day in our daily life. Again, Tolman is everywhere in our daily life. Now, keep this in mind. Students are thinkers, be it those who recite, those who are silent, those who are reflective, no? But we have to know they are thinkers. Okay, so as future teachers, remember this. Students are not robots. They think, they plan, they expect, and they aim for goals. So your role as teacher is just to guide, no? Not just to instruct, but also to guide. All right? So I hope you understood the topic for today.